Hey guys, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and welcome to another edition of the Black Lightning Season 3 review series. And today I'm going to be talking about Episode 9, The Book of Resistance, Chapter 4, Earth Crisis. Now before I get into talking about Episode 9, as I mentioned at the end of the last video that I did, I said that Episode 9 was going to be a very special one, mainly because Episode 9 is tied to Crisis on Infinite Earths. Now this episode takes place, I'm going to say, between parts 2 and 3 of the crossover event. So in this episode we learn how Black Lightning will end up playing a role in the Crisis crossover event, among other things. So this was a very good episode. I would probably say this was the best episode of Season 3 so far, if not the best ever. It was really good and it really catches you off guard, and the way they were able to tie Black Lightning to the Arrowverse and bring him into the Crisis crossover event was a very good move and a stroke of genius, and it's not really something I would have thought of, to be honest. Now, ever since Black Lightning came out a couple of years ago, they have gone out of their way to say that Black Lightning isn't part of the Arrowverse, it's his own thing, and for the most part they have stayed true to their word. Black Lightning has remained exclusively on his own and he has not interacted with any of the heroes from the Arrowverse. But however, they have made a couple of little references here and there. I believe it was back in Season 1, maybe 2, but I'm going to go with Season 1. They made 2 references to Supergirl, but Black Lightning never got to meet Supergirl at all, but they did make references to it. So obviously they were thinking about maybe having Black Lightning appear on one of those shows, but I always looked at it like, if they were ever going to bring Black Lightning into one of the Arrowverse shows, it's got to mean something and it's got to be big, and there's nothing more bigger than the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover event, and that's exactly what takes place in this episode here. So before I get into talking about Episode 9, I'm just going to give a little quick recap of what's happened so far. So what we've seen in Season 3 so far is we've seen the people of Freeland and the Pierce family having to deal with the ASA occupation and oppression, while the threat of the Markovians looms over their collective heads. And we've also seen Henderson, Jamila and Blackbird and a bunch of other people band together as a resistance, while it's driving a wedge between Black Lightning and the Pierce family and among other people. But in the last episode we saw Black Lightning finally join the resistance, but that all changes in this episode as we see the Pierce family are delved into a much larger crisis, far bigger than the occupation or the Markovians, as the skies begin to turn red over Freeland. Now, it's never actually disclosed what Earth this show takes place, but I think we're going to say it probably takes place on Earth 73. Now, unless someone can correct me, and maybe I'm wrong, but it looks like Black Lightning's show takes place on Earth 73, but who knows, maybe someone will correct me on that, but that's what I think anyway. So what can I really say about this episode? It was really good, it was very emotional, and in my honest opinion I would probably say that this was the best episode of Season 3, and the way they were able to tie it to the crossover event was a stroke of genius and very well done. So this was a lot of fun and really gets your blood pumping, because you know what's coming but you just don't know how they'll get to that point. So it's very interesting to see how they got there. So with that all said, let's not waste any more time. I'm really looking forward to talking about this one. Let's talk about Episode 9, The Book of Resistance, Chapter 4, Earth Crisis. So we kick off this episode with Jennifer waking up at 3:33 a.m. for the third night in a row, and she begins to make a video for Anissa about it, as she reveals that she's been working with Agent Odell and among other things, and she decides to go and see Anissa. It turns out that Jamila's message did get out after all, but that news didn't go over particularly well, and the information is still being warped. We now learn that Odell lives and calls Jennifer. He is still trying to get her to remain on his side. The resistance tries to come up with a plan. Anissa tells her father they may have to kill, and she also reveals that the ASA has Khalil and he's the one who attacked her. Killing may be their only option now that things have changed. Jefferson, of course, doesn't warm to the idea. Meanwhile, at Anissa, Jennifer is in full costume and waits for her sister, while outside the skies begin to turn red. The lightning messes with her powers and she collapses. We then see Jennifer wake up in a very weird alternate dimension where she encounters two other versions of herself. One who is in ASA custody, the regular Jennifer, and a darker Jennifer. It turns out these different versions of Jennifer are from different Earths. The first one we meet is Gen from Earth 1. And it's Christmas, and this is the version where Jennifer is in the collar and used the water of Freeland to cure metahumans. Anissa is not out but met a girl and tells her sister about it. Khalil gets a full ride to the UCLA. The peace is disrupted when soldiers show up at the door and take the Pierce family, having been sold out by the Reverend. Odell kills Jefferson in front of his family. We then see back to reality. Anissa finds Jen unconscious and calls for Gambi. Jennifer wakes up briefly to say that her dad is dead, and we plunge back into Earth 1. Gen is in the pit crying and blaming herself when Anissa arrives to visit with a message from their mum that she is on her way to visit. So what you're seeing here is that these different versions of Jennifer, the events in their life play out very, very differently. So this was probably the best scene I liked, because we really got to see the different paths that Jen ended up. We then learn that this Freeland experienced the war with the Markovians, but in reality we see Gambi and Anissa trying to figure out what exactly is going on. Jefferson is on his way, but Lynn is cooking drugs in an in-home lab, trying because of her green light addiction when she gets the call from Anissa. Then we see in Earth 1, Lynn visits Jennifer in the pit and tells her that her father was proud of her and that everything she did was worth it. In reality, both Lynn and Jefferson show up and see what's happening with Jennifer. She's being impacted by the anti-wave matter and is able to appear in two places at once. Henderson calls. The resistance is in trouble and needs help. Lynn blames Jefferson for things and tells him he needs to go. We then go to Earth 2, which is Jin. This is the dark version of Jennifer, and we see Jefferson as a teacher, and Jennifer comes into the classroom. She works with the ASA, and Jefferson tries to tell her that she's being used. She disagrees with him and his methods and leaves. She meets with Odell, having fully leaned into his manipulation. She also killed all the metahumans and appears to be this universe's version of Painkiller. In reality, things worsen as we see Jennifer keeps phasing, and Anissa thinks the ASA is behind the red skies. Lynn and Anissa disagree about Khalil. Gambi finds out that Odell is trying to weaponize kids with green light. They have to handle the situation right away. Meanwhile, in Jin's world, Jennifer confronts Jefferson. Her whole family tries to stand up to Jennifer. They want to turn herself in. She's not interested, and Jennifer attacks her whole family. She fights Jefferson, overwhelming him and killing him. She then ends up killing her entire family. In reality, Gambi still has no idea what is going on, and then suddenly Jennifer disappears again and is back in the weird space that we saw her at the beginning and slaps Jin. Jennifer and Jin fight. Jen tries to stop them. They stop fighting for a moment, and the three of them realise that they are all from different Earths, and the storm is pulling all those worlds together with only one of them set to survive. Jennifer confronts these two other versions of herself. One is superpowered and the other one has no powers, and comes to peace with herself. While they discuss, a white wave hits them and makes them all vanish. In reality, as we all know, this is the anti-wave matter, and it wipes out the entire Earth, but before that happens, Black Lightning is breached away at the very last moment before everything he knows is gone, and that pretty much ends episode 9. As I said from the beginning, excellent episode, really enjoyed this one a lot. I would probably say that this was the best episode of season 3. It was really good, and as I said at the beginning, anybody who's seen Crisis on Infinite Earths, when you see the skies turn red, you know what's coming, and the way they were able to tie this show to the Arrowverse was really good, and really enjoyed this one a lot. So, I'm going to wrap this episode up now. What did you think of episode 9? Did you enjoy it? What did you think of Jennifer seeing different versions of herself from different Earths and seeing her life play out in different events? Did you think it was good? Do you think they could have done maybe a whole episode of that perhaps? And what were your thoughts on the way they were able to take Black Lightning from his Earth and bring him into the Crisis crossover event? Did you think that was very well done? You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will be back next time for another edition of the Black Lightning Season 3 review series, where I'll be talking about episode 10. Now, one final thing that I am going to mention before I wrap this up, if you want to know what exactly happened to Black Lightning after his Earth was destroyed, I highly recommend you check out part 3 of the Crisis crossover event, which is The Flash, and part 5, which is Legends of Tomorrow. So there'll be 2 links down below where you can click on them and find out exactly what happened to Black Lightning and the kind of role that he plays in the crossover event. So I'll leave that there for you to check out, and I will see all of you next time. Also, I'll add some more links as well, just in case you're not able to get to them. So, as I said, I will see all of you next time. So until then, take care everybody and stay safe.